Have you ever looked at someone who spent hours in a tattoo chair, paid hundreds of dollars, and endured real pain to get something permanently etched onto their skin, only to spend the next few years desperately wishing they could take it all back? It happens more than you think. Studies suggest that roughly 17% of tattooed people regret at least one of their tattoos. That's nearly 1 in 5. And while most people chalk it up to poor decision-making or simply changing tastes, psychologists have discovered something far more interesting going on beneath the surface. People who regret their tattoos tend to share one specific psychological trait, and once you understand it, you'll never look at tattoo regret the same way again. But before we get to that trait, let's talk about what tattoo regret actually feels like. Because it's not just a passing oops. For many people, it becomes a source of genuine psychological distress. They cover up certain body parts in professional settings. They feel anxious at the beach or at the gym. They replay the moment they made the decision over and over again, asking themselves, why did I do that? What was I thinking? That question, what was I thinking? Turns out to be exactly the right one to ask. The psychological trait at the core of tattoo regret is something researchers call present bias, and it's far more powerful than most people realize. Present bias is the tendency to overvalue what you want right now, while dramatically undervaluing how you'll feel in the future. It's the same force that makes you eat the entire bag of chips even though you know you'll feel terrible afterward. It's why people skip the gym today, even though they genuinely want to be healthy next year. And it's why, sitting in that tattoo chair feeling excited and certain, a person can completely fail to imagine how their 40-year-old self might feel about a tribal armband or an ex-partner's name inked on their chest. This isn't a matter of intelligence. Present bias affects everyone. But research shows that some people are significantly more susceptible to it than others. And those people, when it comes to permanent body art, are far more likely to end up in the regret camp. Here's what's happening in the brain. When you're excited about a tattoo, your limbic system, the emotional, reward-driven part of your brain, is firing on all cylinders. You're imagining how it will look, how it will feel, what it will mean. The dopamine is flowing. In this state, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for long-term thinking and consequences, gets essentially overruled. You're not really making a decision about forever. You're making a decision about right now. People with stronger present bias have a harder time bridging that gap. They struggle to genuinely connect with their future self as a real person whose opinions will matter. Psychologists call this future self-continuity, the degree to which you feel emotionally connected to who you'll become. Studies have shown that people with low future self-continuity make consistently worse long-term decisions. They save less money. They make riskier health choices. And yes, they're more likely to get tattoos they'll eventually regret. There's another layer to this too. Present bias often shows up most powerfully during emotionally charged moments. A breakup, a major life event, a night out with friends, a period of identity searching in your late teens or early 20s. These are the exact moments when tattoos feel most meaningful and most urgent, and they're also the moments when your brain is least equipped to think about the long game. Think about the most commonly regretted tattoo categories. Names of romantic partners. Tattoos gotten on impulse during a trip or a party. Designs that felt deeply meaningful during a particular phase of life. A band. A symbol. A quote that no longer resonates years later. Every single one of these categories is a textbook example of present bias at work. The person wasn't thinking about who they'd be in 10 years. They were fully, completely absorbed in who they were right then. Now, this doesn't mean that everyone who acts on present bias ends up regretting their tattoo. Plenty of impulsive tattoos are loved for life. But the people who experience deep, lasting regret, the kind that genuinely affects their confidence and self-perception, almost always describe a version of the same thing when they look back. I wasn't thinking about the future. I was only thinking about how I felt in that moment. So what can we actually do with this knowledge? If you're someone considering a tattoo, understanding present bias is genuinely useful. The old advice of wait a year before getting a tattoo exists for a reason. It forces your future self to have a vote. Ask yourself not just whether you love this design today, but whether you can picture yourself at 50 still feeling okay about it on your body. Try to mentally fast forward through the different versions of your life, different careers, relationships, environments, and honestly ask whether this fits across all of them. And if you already have a tattoo you regret, here's something worth knowing. The regret itself isn't really about the tattoo. It's about that gap between who you were when you made the decision and who you are now. That gap is actually a sign of growth. It means you've changed. The person who got that tattoo made the best decision they could with the emotional and psychological tools they had at the time. That's worth having some compassion for. Present bias, by the way, isn't a character flaw. It's wired into every human brain. It helped our ancestors survive in a world where the immediate threat of a predator mattered far more than long-term planning. The problem is that we're now making permanent decisions in an ancient brain that was built for temporary problems. The people who navigate this best aren't the ones who have somehow eliminated present bias that's impossible. They're the ones who've learned to recognize when it's happening. They've developed the habit of pausing and asking, am I making this decision for right now or for the long run? And for something as permanent as ink on your skin, that question might be the most important one you ever ask. Tattoo regret isn't really about tattoos. It's about time and our deeply human struggle to truly believe that the future is real until it becomes the present. Did you enjoy the video? If so, a thumbs up goes a long way. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one. You'll want to watch the next video, because the psychological trait behind why people get tattoos in the first place is just as surprising, and it reveals something most people never expect to hear about themselves.